Hey, all you recovering emo kids, Amanda and Rob here on the Emo Kids Anonymous podcast. And on today's episode, we are joined by the author, Andrew Sacher, of the forthcoming book, Emo Revival, Community, DIY, and Rebirth in Post-Hardcore and Emo from 2008 to 2018. It is a long time coming, a book about the fourth wave of emo. And Andrew, who has been a writer for like Brooklyn Vegan for years.
Since the beginning, 2010?
He has been on the forefront, like watching these bands, come up from the underground and do what they do. A lot of bands that we have that have influenced many of the bands that have been on this show. And it was such a pleasure to get to talk to him about his thoughts on the scene, what went into writing this book. And, it's a labor of love, and I'm excited for him that it's going to finally get to come out.
Andrew's awesome. This was an absolute pleasure to have a fellow like emo nerd on this level.
Yeah.
And not even just an emo nerd, but like a legitimate emo fucking historian. Like I've been reading through this book the last like week or so, where it's just like the level of just like things tying together, and just like the level of work put into this, I cannot imagine. I told him I've been reading fucking shit of his on Brooklyn Vegan since 2011, 2012 or so, personally. Yeah. So this was an honor. Absolute pleasure to have them on. And the book rips. What are the rules? How do you become... I meant to ask this before we had to let him go, but obviously the Knicks game. What are the rules on becoming a bestseller with the New York Times? I feel like that's kind of loosey-goosey. Like, I feel like I see everyone saying that shit.
I don't know. Like, maybe a couple...
I don't know. Like,
how many
something?
do we got? I don't know.
Yeah. We're gonna have to help out, because I think it'd be sick if he could say New York Times bestseller. That'd be cool. But before we get to any sort of New York Times bestselling, hello Hillary Rodham, we see you, fellow New York Times bestseller. You have a lot in common with Andrew. I'm sorry. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the show and follow us and like us on social media and stuff. That would mean a lot. As always, this episode is brought to you by Protégé. It's a company. They make face cream. It has retinol and sunscreen and moisturizer and stuff in it. You put it on your face and you look younger. It's rejuvenating. You go over to Emo Kids, or you go over to Protégé.com, you enter Emo Kids at checkout. You get your first bottle for $10. After that, you enter Rob40, ROBB40 at checkout. You get everything after that for 40% off. With all that being said, here's our interview with Andrew Sacher.
I love the Bowie album in the background.
Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was more interested on the whole shirt.
This
is probably the least cool take I can have to just get it out of the way early, but I'm such a celebrity skin stan. That feels like that's not the cool choice in any way, but like, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's their third best album.
Yeah.
right. Like, it's their fourth if you include America's Sweethearts, I guess, with the fucking Julian songs.
Yeah.
Anyways, welcome to Emo Kids Anonymous.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do I sound and look all right? You guys can hear?
Oh, yeah.
You look great.
You sound great. You look great.
For the people who are watching who maybe aren't literary, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to these folk?
Sure. I'm Andrew Sacher. I have a book called Emo Revival coming out on September 8th via Clash Books. I've also written for Brooklyn Vegan for over 15 years. So music is my life, and that's all I got.
I feel like was just a format. That was honestly a formality, so we can figure out how to say your last name, because we were both off on it.
Oh yeah, you should. Yeah.
Everyone watching this knows who you are, but I was like, it's Sacher. I've been saying it because it's like I've been reading your name online since I was like 23 years old, But it's I was like, I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
I mean, it's one of those names that people usually say wrong because of the H. But I tell people it's like Bach,
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Now it makes me, Louis
Sacher?
The
author
the guy
of
who wrote
Holes.
Holes. Yeah. Isn't that, okay, so that's how you pronounce it.
He spells it differently. He spells it AR instead of ER.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, no, do you know that like trolley emo band Captain Jazz?
Yes.
The new Captain Jazz?
The new, yeah.
You mean sorry, what, the Cash Jazzy?
Right. Well, yeah. Captain Jazz, FKA, Cash Jazzy, FKA. Yeah. They tweeted at me and they were like, "Oh, this book will be a great follow up to Holes." So,
I love
somebody
that.
has
That's
made the
amazing.
Lewis Sacker reference already.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Okay.
And you're wearing the whole shirt, which
Oh,
I know is, but now this is all coming so full circle for
Wow,
me
this is
right
really
now.
full circle here. Well,
Yeah.
it's an honor to have you, and I appreciate you joining us. I understand as a New York City resident, today is a bit of a fucking holiday.
Yes.
well, I appreciate you guys
Congrats
being
on that.
flexible on timing.
Of course,
I
not a
understood, and I was like, oh shit, New York City, I get it. I was texting with Catherine. I was like, no, if this was like the Chargers or the Padres, I would take the week off. Like, it'd be the week after because of there's no bail in California anymore, so it'd take a while. But like, yeah, I get it. So yeah, I hope you have the Spurs, they're gonna get their time anyway. So like, this is a nice moment for your city.
Yeah, I hope it goes our way. We'll see.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Isn't this the game where there's going to be a guest of honor that everyone is not psyched
Mom
to
Donnie's
see?
going to be there. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's guest. No, wait, everyone's psyched to see.
Oh, the
that
other
guy.
one?
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Anyway, Andrew, we are so happy to have you on, particularly because a lot of the bands in this Emo Revival, which, we're classifying as 2008 to 2018, a lot of the bands that we've been interviewing here on Emo Kids Anonymous, they have taken, they grew up with these bands, right? These bands are the ones that inspired them to make
the first
music.
15 pages, you mentioned like 3 artists that are going to be on our show in the next like 3 weeks kind of shit. Like
Yes.
Evan is on here in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And like, we're just going through, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, oh, like Joe and stuff like that. I'm like, fuck, like this is, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why did you feel like it was important now to write about this movement in this moment?
This is your first book.
Yeah, it's my first book.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was saying, so yeah, tell us, why do you feel like it was now that was the time to tell this story?
Yeah. Well, I think there were a few people when I was sort of pitching the book around that said, isn't it a little too soon to write about something from the 2010s? And the example I always use actually is one of the biggest books on emo is Nothing Feels Good by Andy Greenwald, which came out in 2003 in the middle of the emo boom, like before My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy even became like, you know what I mean? So it's like in hindsight, that book was like way too early to document the thing, but like, it's also an amazing snapshot of its time. And like, I'm like, hey, it's never too early. If that can come out in the middle of like third wave emo, then I can at least write a book on fourth wave emo in the middle of fifth wave emo, So that was part of it. And also just like, I think as I was interviewing some of the bands in this book for other things, like whether it was the Brooklyn Vegan podcast or like articles on their new albums or something like that, like everybody lately in that I spoke to from this scene has kind of been very reflective. Like there seems to be like a bit of a shared feeling of we were really part of a cool thing that happened. Even for the bands that are still putting out records, it still kind of feels like what they were part of is something that happened. The story's kind of set in stone. Of course, this year alone, we have amazing records from Tiger's Jaw, Joyce Manor, Citizen, Menzingers, Turnover, Basement. Like it's, it's not over, but it feels like the scene, the moment, the movement kind of happened. So
I feel like there's this beautiful thing too, where like it happens like this is in my eyes like one of the last like larger great like punk rock movements.
Yeah.
In the same way, like in the same way third wave emo was at one point, but then it becomes very monetized and commercialized, and it becomes like eye rolly and you can't get away from it kind of thing. Whereas like this era, and you talk about in the book too, where it's kind of like a lot of those like I have a fucking on principle I kept one here where it's like these absolute punks like look, this one's got a canceled band, even like this one's got some redacted motherfuckers. Whoops. But like these are Tiger beats, like these are my kids, my son's mom left them here, she's storing some stuff here, and I was like, these are fucking J14s, like there's nothing cool about this, but then all the media is kind of stuck in that. So as these are happening, like a Tiger's Jaw or Hotelier, like anything, it's kind of just, it's not getting the same kind of nostalgia look backs. It didn't get the same kind of press at the time. Like you guys were doing your shit, but like the legacy media at that time wasn't really hip to it, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Is I did feel like some of this part of this story was in danger of getting lost to time because it's not as documented as third wave or even second wave emo.
No, yeah.
And I still like meet people who like emo who kind of missed the boat on fourth wave, despite it being.
Andrew, I missed the boat entirely as it fucking happened.
Yep.
So much because, like, yeah, I was in a band, so I was busy doing my own thing. But it's like, okay, these establishment things, Absolute Punk, whatever, these punk news, like these sites, I knew the Menzingers and Joyce Manor and stuff like that. But like, I didn't listen to a modern baseball record till like 2018, probably. Like.
Yeah.
We missed the boat on it, kind of thing, and social media wasn't as prevalent. So like there was MySpace. It was very easy to connect like that. Then MySpace dies, and for a while there, Instagram and Facebook, like
Tumblr,
they're not social medias. They're like social networks, like you're showing it to your pals, but like I couldn't find you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's like, and the book gets into the correlation between fourth wave emo and the social media of the time. And like, yeah, I mean, I fully agree with what you said that this is one of the kind of last really important movements for punk rock. Like, I've definitely been drawing analogs to my favorite music book of all time is Our Band Could Be Your Life. Which is about the sort of like 80s underground that kind of led to Nirvana. And I've kind of been drawing a little bit of a parallel for my book, which is like if you were looking at emo in the mainstream, if you look at the third wave where it's all super popular and then it kind of dies by 2010-ish, and now you have like When We Were Young Fest style, like, resurgence, renewed interest. And if you miss that in between, there was a whole bridge connecting those things. Like, it's not like emo died and came back to life with when We Were Young Fest.
No, exactly.
So it's similarly like in Our Band Could Be Your Life. I feel like one of their premises, or one of Michael Azerrad's premises, is like punk rock didn't die with the fourth Ramones album and come back to life with Nirvana. There was a whole bridge of important underground bands in the 80s, and I think that there's a similarity here where like something really important happened for about a decade, but it just wasn't reported on as much as what came before and after.
Yeah, which was in that time period was difficult when we didn't have the social media we have today, where it's so easy to connect with bands.
Oh yeah, people
DIY
like,
bands like
16-year-old kids are finding like Sacha and Orchid and shit now, and like all these like wild and like because it's just being kind of given to you, like, oh, you like Pierce the Veil? Well, you might like Title Fight. Well, you might like this kind of thing, and it just kind of it gives it to you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but yeah, there's this whole kind of lost period there. I feel like the 2010s, or even now, like I feel like they get skipped. You look at like a Riot Fest lineup or a fucking Warped or some of these, alternative music festivals, like the 2000 bands are still big. Hey, Arm's Length and Joyce, or Arm's Length and Hot Mulligan are doing good work in their way out. But yeah, besides like a Joyce Manor, like not a lot of them are occupying that middle to upper middle part of the festival flyer,
not these bigger festivals. And I know, like, which is really interesting. And I always, when I was reading your book, realizing I've lived in Philadelphia throughout my entire like college years, and then I moved right at the time to Arkansas, of all places, right at the time when these bands started to pop off in that area, and all I kept thinking is, I missed out on something really amazing because I moved away for a boy. That's not great.
That Tyson chicken money, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it bother you, Andrew? I have to know really quick. I'm going to say as peers here, but realistically, you're probably like in the top 3 voices for emo. We're like probably like 74, 75, but I'm going to say we're peers anyways here. As a fellow like emo lover, historian, person that speaks for it and writes about it, how much of it do you get bothered at all that this beautiful, rich music subculture, subgenre that's kind of carried punk rock for the last 15 fucking years kind of just gets associated with Guy Liner and Hot Topic?
Well, first of all, I don't agree with what you said, but thank you. The ranking thing. I'm not that.
Don't sell yourself short.
But
you wrote the book. We did not.
I mean, of course, it bothers me. It bothered me during this scene, and it was something that I always had to fight against, especially writing about these bands on Brooklyn Vegan, which was in like the sort of indie rock press orbit with like Stereo Gum and Pitchfork and like
but
a
it's
lot
still
of
at a time where the more punk rock or indie leaning people are going to see emo, and they're not thinking Sunny Day, they're thinking fucking Hawthorne Heights.
And
or
even if they
they're
were
like,
thinking Sunny Day, that wasn't much.
it wasn't cool.
It wasn't much better either. Like, I mean, like, do you ever look at those Pitchfork reviews of really, really good emo records? Like, Get Up Kid, Something to Write Home About got like a 2 point something, and that's a cool album, like it's not even like. So
I think when we had Ryland on, I think I was like, you got like an 8 point something on Somewhere City. He's like 8.2. I'm like,
yeah, he was very proud of that.
I was like, that's a 10. For an emo record, brother.
And if you're crossing the 8.0 line and you're an emo band, just call that best new music.
6.5,
like, just give yourself the red circle.
2018 Pitchfork.
Yeah.
But like, before
go
that,
treat yourself. Yeah.
So it was, even back then, it was such an uphill battle. Like, you really had to convince people that a lot of the bands in fourth and second wave emo were really more indie rock bands. Because like the thing about third wave emo is like those bands were really more pop punk bands. Like even like blanket statement, but like even the bands that I really love from that era are still closer to pop punk than they are to indie rock, just on like a musical level. But like bands like Sunny Day Real Estate and American Football and Mineral, and then the revival bands like Algernon Cadwallader and Hotelier and Foxy, all these bands.
Even I think the most indie band of like third wave is something like a Motion City Soundtrack.
Right,
like,
right.
That's still
or like
pretty poppy.
Relatively bubblegum.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And like like. So like those bands always had more in common. Like they shared way more DNA with the indie rock bands. And one of my like sort of points when I was covering this stuff for Brooklyn Vegan at the time was, hey, if you like indie rock that's actually indie and actually rock music, because this was the era of like Churches and the 1975, and like bands that, and like I mean Matty Healy from 1975 happens to be like it's just major label pop music.
It's the next wave of iPod commercial bullshit.
Right. So like, and and not hating on that music, but if you wanted the grittiness of the same reason you like bands like Superchunk or Built to Spill or like Sugar or these sort of 90s indie rock bands that were like essential to the indie rock canon, you were finding that in bands that were called emo. So like,
even you mentioned like Built to Spill there, even like we've interviewed I was gonna say hundreds, but literally about 100. A lot of these bands, and like like a Third Eye Blind, even like like that's a very of that world, like that's not even indie anymore. That's bubblegum radio. But Third Eye Blind has come up on our show more than I would say My Chemical Romance even.
Right.
Yes, 100%.
100% in terms of influence, because at some point third wave just kind of gets skipped. Fourth wave is really influenced by second.
Yeah.
And hardcore and stuff like that, and just
Why do you think that is, Andrew? Like that the fourth wave, is it just a rejection of the commercialization of the sound of third wave? Do you think that's why they really just gravitate more towards the second wave sounds?
So like yes and no, because I would say I asked that question to every band I interviewed for the book, and I talked to about 80 bands, and like some straight up were like 100%. But there were others who were like, not exactly a reaction as much as we just weren't even really looking at that music. Like some people were like, Fall Out Boy was just pop music. Like it wasn't what I was reacting against. It just like wasn't what I was doing.
Especially by that point, if you're 14 and your entry point to Fall Out Boy was Infinity on High or something like that, you're not seeing that's not music. The same as the band playing at the Unitarian Church kind of shit.
And that's honestly, no disrespect, but even if your introduction was From Under the Cork Tree, honestly, that was all over MTV constantly.
Yeah.
And then here's a group of then teenagers who were just, finding their way into music and finding records by bands like Cap and Jazz and Braid and Lifetime and Texas Is the Reason, and just being like, I love this stuff. I want to do this kind of music. And I think a lot of it happened really organically in that way. But I also think, of course, there was some reaction to like, a lot of people, let's say like in the bands in the book probably roughly were born between like late 80s, early 90s. So a lot of people in those bands probably found punk through Blink-182 and or Green Day. And so like
it's a common thread. I if I were to run like a search on your book, like word search, Blink-182 comes up a lot, but it's always like they were smoking weed and listening to Blink-182.
Right.
That's what happened here.
Right. So it's like, I think a lot of these bands did find their way to that music through the really, really mainstream stuff. And then once you realize like underground music and subculture are important things to you, you kind of like follow that path and you're like, oh, like from Blink-182, I can find like the Descendants. From Newfound Glory, I can find Gorilla Biscuits, and all these things. And then you're like, oh, and now I'm more into the thing that's less popular, even though the popular thing got me into it. And so now I want to like form a band that sounds like the stuff I love that I don't seem to see as much. I think it was like kind of that. Like it was like, oh, I love Cap and Jazz, and I haven't heard a new band that sounds like Cap and Jazz since Cap and Jazz. So
like, what the fuck is this? Yeah,
right. So I think there was
something.
Yeah, and I think the reason like that it was such a successful quote unquote revival, like I think the word revival gets overused in all genres, but I think there was some really like unfuckwithable, undeniable. It was clearly a revival of something. And like the post-punk revival of like the Strokes Interpol era. That was clearly a thing that was kind of like
funny
over and done with.
Because to me, I have a good friend whose opinion I respect a lot with music stuff, and I was like, it's like the Meet Me in the Bathroom for the 2010s era of emo bands. I was like, it's not an oral history, different kind of thing, but like those are the two, like where that one same thing where like it felt, but there's difference too, where the media and like mainstream media and shit still existed at that point, to where like, okay, this magical thing happened. Somewhere along the line, fucking the money comes in. Like, hey, the Strokes are fucking famous and stuff like that. Whereas like, Foxing never got that bag.
Right. But in its own way, this scene did have that moment where the industry, kind of swooped and things changed. But I digress. The end of that sentence is, I feel like this was truly a revival of a style of music that had all but disappeared. So like, I think that was really fueling so much of it. Is it was like this new generation of fans that were a little bit too young to have their own third wave bands. Like the third wave, when you look back, it's crazy when you realize like the members of Taking Back Sunday are like 5-6 years older than the members of fourth wave bands, but because you're getting big when you're like 18, 19, and then 12-year-olds are starting their own little local high school bands, and when they're 18, 19, they're the next generation. So, like just a few years too young to be a third wave band, really into a style of emo that was kind of not represented anymore, and feeling like, hey, I want to bring that back. I want to do that because I love that and I don't hear it around me. And I think that's like really where the word revival came from, is it was all these bands, whether it was Touche dipping their toes into bands like Sacher, Title Fight dipping their toes into bands like Lifetime, Algernon dipping their toes into Cap and Jazz. It was all bands reviving a thing that had kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And I think too, like it's mentioned in the book, but it's also just like a common thing, like as anyone that grows up watching music, like, okay, you find Blink or Green Day or whatever these bands are you find on the radio or TV, you go see them at this large place. That's very much not a thing. I can't go book the fucking amphitheater. But then I see like, oh, this band playing at the local, like a basement of a church or this DIY venue. It's like, oh shit, like you go see those shows, like those bands, like you mentioned there's a few in there, like I believe, I apologize if I get the name wrong again, but it was the Erection Kids. Like I imagine there's a lot of these bands where it's like, if you're 13 or 14 years old, it's like the Erection Kids where you're fucking Taking Back Sunday kind of thing, because it's some sort of attainable thing. You're seeing them at these things around town. Like, those people become like your inspiration more than Billy Joel Armstrong is,
Right. And I think, you mentioned hardcore earlier. Like, a lot of the music in this book was really tied to the hardcore scene, and like that was also a difference from what third wave emo had become. This, like, and that's why I think when we were talking about festivals that book this stuff, the one festival I can think of that actually does a good job booking this stuff now is Outbreak Fest.
Wow!
Because
I thought you were going to say our friend Tony in Gainesville there.
Oh well, the fest always has been a massive part of this scene, so that's almost like of course the fest. But as far as like a festival that is like, oh, let's get Joyce Manor and Tiger Straw and Hotelier to play like records for their 10th anniversaries, that kind of stuff, like Outbreak Fest is doing it. And I think it's because like a lot of these bands just came up playing hardcore shows because they were really acting. That was their mentality. It was the ethos of hardcore at a time when emo was, again, pretty much pop music, and this was not the ethos of pop music. It was the ethos of hardcore.
Emo was a slur almost. You mentioned like same thing where like I kind of imagine like a lot of these emo bands of this era, and I'll say this for myself even, like a lot of emo kids are just, we want to be hardcore kids, but we're kind of too pussy to be hardcore kids kind of thing. But it's like kind of the same ethics. Like even reading there where it's like, okay, like a Dan Campbell, it's like, yeah, the band is, he writes goddamn Taylor Swift fucking type pop songs sometimes. They're beautiful tracks, but it's like at heart, he's a hardcore kid still, you know? Crossing that over, a band that comes up more times than I was expecting to, Against Me. Against Me was my, I think, favorite band for a long time when I was younger. But reading this book, I kind of start getting the idea that like, and this is some fucking Stephen A. Smith ass fucking like over the top clickbait thing, but like, is Against Me the greatest or the most important DIY band of all time? In terms of like level of success, in terms of everything like that, like where did, like, I'm trying to think of other bands like that really kind of started with such strong like DIY ethos and hits to the point of being, I mean,
so I think
major
the
label
two
darlings.
most important DIY punk bands of the maybe 21st century are Against Me and Bomb the Music Industry. And
there we go.
Jeff's
think, the only other person I can think of.
Yeah. I think they really, like, I mean, it's been said before that Jeff Rosenstock is like the Ian MacKaye for a different generation, but like they introduced a whole new generation to DIY ethos, and they had just enough of a big enough platform. Like the Against Me DVD specifically even comes up, but people being like, "Oh,
so many
I could see."
It comes up like 3 times.
Right, like I could see how the tour went. You know, like I could understand booking your own tour is possible. Like, so I think those bands really had a big enough platform to show people DIY is still possible at a time when punk rock was so much visible. Punk rock was very, very disconnected from its DIY roots.
Of course, even at the time, like the big punk rock bands at that time, you know, the early 2000s, like, are the literal fucking label owners. Like, what you talk about Rancid, as they're cutting backroom deals with Warner Brothers, as they're blacklisting his fucking teenage ex-girlfriend. NoFX, the guy that owns the label. Bad Religion, the guy that owns the label. Anti-Flag, the guy that's, you know, like it's very commercialized. At the time, like Against Me kind of pops off as this band, like we're playing in Gainesville, our drummer's banging on fucking old ramen buckets. And then, I mean, I think Jeff did a better job, I think, staying true to those DIY ethos, but I don't fault any of the, like, you know, we look back at like the throwing the bricks at the fucking tour, but like that kind of bullshit, like, I love Against Me. I think they did a really good job climbing up the ranks. I respect the way they handled it. If someone from Sire Records came along and put a check in front of me like that, I would take it too, you know?
Yeah.
But then Against Me left a major label, or the deal ended or whatever it was, and they made Transgender Dysphoria Blues their best record.
And that's their best record.
Right.
I would honestly say was the record after, is that Shapeshift With Me?
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
I think that's a great record too. And honestly, like what the two is so New Wave is a major label record. Is White Crosses too?
I think so.
White Crosses, I think, is honestly like, it's great in its own way, in the sense of like you're biting Bruce Springsteen here. Like you're just, Laura's doing Bruce, which is cool. Like
I never hated the major label Against Me stuff, and I do think like I've seen them live so many times since they had their like second act, and when they play the major label stuff alongside, like, you know, the really old stuff and the Transgender Dysphoria Blues stuff, fits right in. And honestly, like, the book was already long and it was cut down a lot, but like I had originally envisioned there being a chapter on Against Me's career at that in that phase, because I feel like Transgender Dysphoria Blues era Against Me actually had a lot of connections to what was going on in Emo Revival, just like Jeff Rosenstock very much did with his solo career, and he makes it in the book too. Again, not as much as I would have liked, but it isn't there. But I do think that, like, if you were living punk rock in those days, Transgender Dysphoria Blues era Against Me, they were playing shows with all the bands in the book. Like, it was one and the same.
that's what I was gonna say is like I didn't really consider a lot like some of these bands in the book. I didn't consider emo at the time, and I didn't consider myself so much of an emo fan in the 2010s. It's like I'm just still like I'm into punk rock, like the Menzingers, Against Me, and it's like I saw Against Me and Menzingers like kind of in the same month span at the Roxy in LA, and it's like okay, they're playing with Pup, they're playing with Rosenstock, like they're doing this and it's kind of all interlocked there. And I guess like at the time, like I would have never thought of any sort of emo adjacency to Against Me.
Right. And yeah, and
But
every band in the book isn't emo. Like I don't consider the Menzingers an emo band, but I consider them part of the community the book's about. And like the book's really more about a community than it is about a style of music. It had to be called something. But like I know there's going to be people who are like, oh, it shouldn't have the Menzingers, shouldn't have Pup. These aren't emo bands. Even Joyce Manor, like
I was gonna say Joy. As I live in SoCal here, I'm like, oh, that's a pop punk band. But like have you seen Jackie? Do you know Sweet Jackie? She's an older woman. She plays the drums. She's popped up on your Instagram, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, I'll send you some Jackie. She's great, but she's like she's been playing like Title Fight and you know
all
Hot Mulligan. Whatever.
All different bands.
And we have a clip with her where it's like she was just learning drums and someone sent her a Title Fight song and it blew up mainly because it's people just upset that like I used the word Midwest emo in this video with Title Fight. It's like Title Fight's a post-hardcore band. Title Fight's this. And it's like I'm like I wasn't even saying like they're not Midwest emo obviously, but like it's a fucking it's umbrellas. Like are we worrying about this too much? Like
it's
let's just be happy.
You really can't get that way with genre because it just becomes like an endless argument that doesn't really achieve that much. So sorry, my apologies to the genre police, I guess. But
they'll be okay, trust me. You won't be the first or last. Okay. Yeah, but I think you brought up a good point, you know, when you're talking about while some of the bands may not be emo in terms of the genre labeling, the sense of community, because, you know, throughout the book, you see that community seems to be like, do you feel like it was like just a natural progression, or is it just a byproduct of them needing to survive in the scene because of the way the scene was at the time? Like, did they were sharing gear, touring together, all that stuff? Is it just because they didn't have, you know, the support of the industry at the time? And, you know, many rock bands didn't at the time, because we're talking about the era of, you know, dubstep and, you know, all those, you know, all that poppy music, that there was just no room on radio for rock at all. And all of our rock bands, and I'll be the first to say it, we're way poppier. Fall Out Boy, we're just pop acts by the 2015. I mean, that's what they were. So do you think it was like a byproduct of that because they didn't have the support, or is it just like there was a different sense with this new group, this fourth wave group that came up?
100% yes, it's that. I mean, DIY really means doing it together. So like the true way to do DIY is to meet like-minded people and form a community with them and help each other out and put on for the other bands. You know, like there was some competition, a lot of friendly competition, a little bit of not so friendly competition, but more often than not, this is one of the less competitive music scenes I could think of. Certainly like one of the less competitive emo scenes.
And I think even like now, like the same thing we notice now, like we kind of like we get a lot of the fifth wave bands, and you know, if it's doesn't matter if it's fucking Riley or Kerosene Heights or Summer Breeze or Dear Marianne or fucking any of these. Like they all like are so supportive of each other. Whereas like in the like third wave emo and second wave kind of existed at a different time too, like pre-internet. So like, but third wave, I remember talking about with our, you know, our father figure Gabe Supporta, where it's like, there's only so many spots on the radio or on that tour. So like, you know, we say with the newer bands where like, there's only so many spots nowadays. There's like, and it starts with fourth wave where like those spots don't exist anymore.
Right.
So and it's like, we're not fighting for the radio. We need to survive together.
Right. And that's really kind of how underground music has always sort of been and continues to be, right? Like fifth wave emo, I think, really carried on the ethos of fourth wave emo, but it's the same as, again, 80s hardcore. It's also the same as like not like outside of punk rock. When you look at like underground electronic scenes operate this way too. So it's really like
runs,
it's just so like it has to be community first because it couldn't be anything else. There's no other way to do it. And I think the fact that all the bands in this world pretty much all of them, really like understood that and believed that and wanted that is why it happened. If bands didn't want that, like, it would splinter. So I think that's, yeah.
Do you think that because there wasn't the do you think also like there's a factor like with other scenes that had continued to stand underground and community and DIY based, like with the problem with the third wave emo is because it became commercialized and all of a sudden MTV got a hold of it. Do you feel like that put the pressure on them to kind of try to one up each other and who's going to win out? Like since that doesn't really exist within the fourth wave emo and even fifth wave, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's very everything is everywhere now because we don't have
it's too segmented.
yes, there's no mass, monoculture anymore. Do you think if theoretically that still could have existed in fourth wave, could we have seen it happen, or do you think that that's just not really a factor at all? That is just it's a different time.
Could fourth wave have gotten popular?
Well, if it had gotten popular, like let's say if it had started to see the effects of commercialization, like if for whatever reason rock music became, a mainstream again on the radio at that time, could you have seen maybe a shift in the way the community might have, been with each other?
I think that probably would have happened because, money tends to create
Yeah.
that. But I also think that one of the things about the bands in this world is like that's something that they did react against and reject. Like, some of these bands played Warped Tour once and were like, never again,
Yeah,
so like,
I think of like even adjacent to this, I think of the Gaslight Anthem. I think it was 08. They were same thing. They're like, we played a handful and they're just like, this isn't for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, it's a really funny, like, coincidence, or maybe it's not a coincidence, but it amuses me that Title Fight, Menzingers, and Touche Amore like all had stints opening for Rise Against in the same year separately, and it was 2012, so it was before this stuff got the big boost from like BuzzFeed and all that. So it was like this world was still underground, but for whatever reason, Rise Against was like, we're taking 3 of these bands on tour separately this year, and that tour came up in all of those interviews with all 3 of those bands. And like everybody kind of was like, yeah, that wasn't a great tour for us. No hate on Rise Against. Just when you're playing to a crowd of people who are impatiently waiting for their favorite band to take the stage, and they're buying their beers, they're finding their seats,
they're not off. They just spent
like,
$18
they're
on
like,
beer.
I genuinely would rather play for 200 people in a barrierless room than open for a room that holds 8,000. And most of them aren't paying attention anyway.
But
so
they're
I
here
think
for the parking lot punk rock Nickelback,
Yeah, right. So like, and I mean, and like, again, no, like I like Rise Against. Like I'm definitely not hating on Rise Against.
Yeah, of course.
But like, it was just these bands got the opportunity to do that, and they were like, no, I don't want that. I'd actually rather play a VFW hall. So I think that that's a factor too, is like maybe this could have gotten bigger if bands wanted it to, but like most of these bands were sort of like, I already saw how this ruins the thing I love, so I'd rather stay away from that. I think.
You see, it's like not everyone wants this commercial success, like, and it's like this commercial success exists, but like that's also kind of like a trope VH1 behind the music kind of shit. Like you realize it's all gonna go fucking bad. Like all your favorite bands become like less cool once they hit that point. Like, what, you want that point for the money? Well, at this point, you can't envision money at all because nobody has money. So it's like, that's not your thought process. It's like, how do we keep this fun and cool and interesting? Because like, I'm dying out here on the fucking road for $33,000 collectively this year.
Yeah.
Why would I not just go fucking detail cars for 55,000? Like, I need to love this.
Yeah, totally. And not making enough money and burning out is the probably number one reason that these bands all sort of broke up in the late 2010s.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And when a lot of them did come back, I've since talked to them about their like reunion eras, and it's almost always the same story, which is we realize we miss playing music, but we're not doing 50 date tours anymore.
Yeah, we're not. We're not overbooking ourselves, and also maybe we didn't realize how big of there's kind of a gap there where a next generation can start seeing you as like deities.
Yeah.
So like you're like, oh, we didn't realize. Like I think of like Sports as a band we had on. Like it's like they didn't quite realize what a big deal Demon Days was at the time, you know?
No, they did not realize.
And then like all these, 18, 20-year-old bands now are like, oh, Demon Days, Demon Days, Demon Days. And it's like, oh shit, like now we can appreciate it. But like we're adults, we have kids. We're going to do 5 weeks on the road as opposed to 15,
Exactly. Yeah. No one's like, they're not really doing the grind anymore. And they're, it's a nice, comfortable place to be when you know that if you play a show, you can get 1,500 people there because you did the work already.
You're selling 600 tickets.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
And they're content with that, and that's cool. I think that's a wonderful place to be. If I was in a band, I would almost rather have that. Like, David Anthony, who's also a writer, is someone I spoke to for the book, and he had a quote that's I think really relevant to share here. He was like, if third wave emo wanted pop success, then fourth wave emo wanted critical acclaim. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like these bands were more interested in getting best new music on Pitchfork than they were on getting on MTV and having a mansion in Beverly Hills. So like that was the sort of fight that did happen. That was where the competition kicked in the most too, where it was like, we want to have the most like artistically and like loved, like, considered important record. We
want to have the best we want to have the record of the year. We want to be on the year-end list.
Exactly.
Because at this point, like, MTV barely exists at this point. The magazine, like, there's no... Panic at the Disco is already fucking Panic at the Disco. There's not going to be a second one. Let's be the coolest. Let's be fucking Nirvana,
Right. All these bands wanted to be cool, I think. And like, and again, that was as someone writing about them in the context of...
I was going to say, they're chasing they're literally... Andrew, they're chasing your approval is what it is. You are the critic that they want the acclaim from.
Well, I think it's really Pitchfork, but
Pitchfork's the main one too. But like Pitchfork was only giving us so much attention.
Right. But no, I mean, it was I think I think a lot of the bands and the labels felt the way I felt as a writer, which was I want people who like indie rock to take this stuff seriously, and indie rock was cool. That was like, and it was, Say Anything sung about this and admit it. Like there was, you're in the club or you're not. And, the pop, there were bands, like you mentioned Motion City Soundtrack, they wanted to be in that club. There were bands in third wave emo that were like, no, I'd actually rather be on NPR.
We're indie rock bands. We're cool. Yeah. We like Jawbreaker. We like
Right, exactly. And those bands existed and, and didn't happen for any of them in real time. I think it after the fact happened for some of them, definitely like eventually happened for Thursday. Like probably more than anyone else. Me Without You, who come up in the book too, I feel like they were like the one that were always that, but like just wrong place, wrong time. But when the fourth wave bands came around, I feel like they were like, okay, we're just going to go straight for that, and then because if you don't even touch the pop thing, maybe you can be considered the indie thing. I think that's like part of it too. I mean, I may be speaking, for out of turn. Yeah, I'm not, no person individually said this to me, but I think there was some level of like, once you play Warped Tour and go on the cover of Alternative Press and have a video on MTV, all that stuff, it's harder and harder and harder to be considered similar to Built to Spill. But if you reject that stuff,
you're not cool anymore.
Right. So
I very much I feel you. We're the same thing. We're very much like you hit that point, like, okay, then you're one of them, and it's like, well, then we're not punk rock anymore, and it's this kind of like eternal battle, like. When you're older, it's like, well, fucking bills are bills, like, let's, but like, especially early 20s, it's like you're thinking about, you're thinking like overarching about like legacy or what's punk rock or ethic wise and stuff like that. Like, that's, like I said, like I look at it right here, like this is fucking Tiger Beat next to me, like if you're Me Without You, if you're Evan Weiss, you're like, fuck, I don't want that. Like, I want to be something cool.
Yeah.
What are your favorite emo bands like right now?
Oh yeah.
Like current, like fifth wave,
like currently, like fifth wave, like in the last like let's say 2-3 years. Like what are your favorite like emo bands or emo records of right now?
How many?
As many as you fucking want. Go to town.
You can list them all off.
The bands will get so excited they got mentioned. Don't worry, you go hard.
I mean, it's there's just so many good ones, but like Home Is Where, Pool Kids, Saturdays at Your Place, Kerosene Heights, Arm's Length, Hot Mulligan, like I'm Prince Daddy, although they're kind of older now, which is weird.
It's wild, right?
That is weird.
Like,
it's wild.
Less than 10 years, but it's like you're kind of the old head here.
Yeah, we asked Corey about that, and he's like, I really should have a better answer about my legacy.
I don't know. He's like, I should have an answer about our legacy. I don't know. Like,
he's like, I don't really know how to respond to that.
It's surreal to me because I think of them as after the era of the bands in my book, and then I'm like, their first album's literally 10 years old. Time flies. Awake but Still in Bed, that's a big one for me. I'll stop there, but it's so many. Emo is in an incredible place, and I
think it's in the best time it's ever been, and I think right now we're in a nice time where like this kind of like we're talking about like, oh, this media didn't exist then, this or that. Like no media exists at all right now, so it's like you and us we can be fucking Kurt Loder right now or whoever. We're like. There's this open, like, a band like Riley. Like, I think Riley's about to fucking pop off beyond our world. Like, the Warped Tour kids and the fucking TikTok kids, like, they're all gonna like Riley. Kerosene Heights is a great band. Same thing where it's like, they just need, a little more marketing or something for people to, like, get their hands on that record. But it's like, I will take these bands right now over the bands of, even the ones you're writing about, third wave, second wave. Like, I think right now we're in this special spot where like they've learned from those bands and they've combined from it really well. And like a lot of like this community aspect really fucking matters. And like I'm just, I mean, obviously I'm defending a lot of these bands that we, once we interview them, I see them like they're like cousins or something. So I'm like, this is my kin here, but like these bands are special. It's tough to play like favorites, but like this era is my favorite.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I think to go back to one of your first questions of like, why write the book now? One of the things was when fifth wave emo started popping off, all these bands had the foundation built by fourth wave. Like it was like, the early days of Prince Daddy, Mom Jeans, Hot Mulligan, those bands were playing the shows that the fourth wave bands were putting on, like it was, whereas when the fourth wave band started doing their thing, third wave was way too popular to be part of, so they kind of ended up with hardcore, but hardcore kids didn't really like them, so it was like they kind of had to like build their own space, whereas fifth wave bands kind of have like, oh, we can just join the emo community, that's like a thing. So
it's funny. I think there's so many like I think of bands like even like Combat.
I love Combat.
I hear that.
They should have been on my
like
list.
Stay Golden to me is the best record of the 2020s, but it's like it's the best punk rock record, but it's like, oh, it's a DIY emo record. They DIY emo, but it's like this is like 90s skate punk meets like MCR meets like Jeff Rosenstock. Like it doesn't fit in the emo. Like this is punk rock at its core, but it's like emo at some point. I think the term, for as much as we said earlier, where it's like it becomes this like hot topic thing, at this point I think in like the underground, emo has become the new term for punk rock, so like you're a DIY emo band, what you really mean is you're a fucking punk band.
And I love that you said that and that I didn't have to say it, because
it's funny because I've been thinking of this the last like few weeks. Like we talked with Jose from Make War about this. I think we talked with Jer the other day from Scott 2 Network, where it's like at some point, like I'm looking at this fest lineup and fest lineups for the last 10, 15 years. At some point, like my punk rock, like I think of like orgcore, festcore, like that's I would have considered myself like an orgcore kid. Like my favorite bands were Trio, Lawrence Arms, Hot Water Music. At some point, orgcore kind of shifts into like it kind of follows my personal interest, where it's like, oh no, now we have Dikembe on here. And then we have Make War and Into It Over It and Kerosene Heights and fucking Dear Cincinnati, Dear Marianne now, where it's like we have become like emo is the new punk rock.
Yeah, no, I think that like the reason bands like Menzingers, Joyce Manor, Pup, Title Fight end up making sense in a book called Emo Revival is because emo kind of ends up being a word that means guitar-based music from the late 2000s through the late 2010s.
Guitar-based
that
DIY
wasn't quite punk rock with a capital P, wasn't poppy on the radio, wasn't really classic indie rock, emo,
Mm-hmm.
and all those bands, really came from punk rock and the punk rock ethos. And I think like the punk bands like Menzingers and Pup that fit with emo, that more so than like there were bands at that time that you would just call punk with a P, you'd never use the E word. And they were, they were kind of in a different world, like
and it's tough. And it gets pigeonholed in their world. They almost became pigeonholed in the way the bands before were pigeonholed, where it's like, oh, you're Red Scare bands.
Right, exactly. That's a perfect example. Like, and it's like, like I also love the horrorcore stuff. Like I grew up listening to, Bouncing Souls, Pennywise, Lagwagon, like what, like, that kind of stuff that like is, I feel like has almost never really got its due in the cool sense.
No,
but like
it hasn't.
that stuff is so sort of dated to, you can't really like be in that world any later than 2004, like, so emo is like the word for punk rock of the youth from sort of the 2000s onwards. I think that's sort of what, like, people aren't really throwing the word punk around as much. Although I call these bands punk bands because it feels that way to me, and I'm old. But like,
but even something like a Kerosene Heights to me, like musically, sonically, like Kerosene Heights to me is like, this is a punk rock band or an emo punk band, like this or that. Like it's not American Football. It's not Jimmy Eat World. It's not the Hotelier. Like it's.
And even the Hotelier,
more
like
hot water music.
The Hotelier are like mentally a folk punk band.
Yeah,
like, and Algernon
Which ties back to
Cadwallader,
that like Against Me thing almost.
Yeah, totally. Like I feel like Algernon Cadwallader have always identified as a punk band. And I do think it is a little bit generational, where like you talk to people who got into this stuff in the early 2000s, playing DIY guitar based loud angry music, and they're like, yeah, like we're punk rock kids, we're in a punk rock band. That's like, it was like the word meant more than a style of music, just like the word emo now means more. Like it was meant a mentality, it meant an approach. And then sort of the later generations, I think, kind of lost calling it that. But like, to me, Algernon Cadwallader are as much a punk band as NoFX. And like,
it's true. And speaking of Algernon, I have a game to play here with you, Andrew. I'm excited. This is gonna be the first time I'm ever doing this. I've asked a lot of bands. We come on. We do these
Rushmores.
We do these long interviews where we fucking really get to the heart of things. But it's like at the end of the day, shit just becomes clips. So these Mount Rushmores are bullshit. But we're gonna play today as a bit of a King of the Mountain. I'm sure you've seen the Criterion King of the Mountain. You have two things facing off. You pick one, and then so I'm going to give you two bands. You're going to pick one, and that next band faces off against the next band.
Okay, I didn't know it was called that. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that what it's called? I might just be fucking making it up.
I've seen this.
I like the term.
Okay. So here I'm trying to do a bit of a journey through. I got 20 bands here. We're just as quick as you fucking can. Pick the winner. Rites of Spring or Mineral?
Mineral
or Sunny Day Real Estate?
Sunny Day Real Estate.
Sunny Day Real Estate or Texas Is the Reason?
Oh man. I don't know. Sunny Day Real Estate, but it's close.
It's
Sunny Day Real Estate or Lifetime?
Oh God, you're killing me. I know. You know what? I'm just gonna use my East Coast bias. Lifetime.
Yep. Lifetime versus Jawbreaker. Oh no, sorry. Lifetime American Football.
Okay. Oof. American Football.
American Football. Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker. Jimmy Eat World.
Oh God. Painful. Jimmy Eat World.
Jimmy Eat World or Thursday?
Oh, come on. Thursday. I'm like, I want somebody to hang around more than 3 times.
Yeah.
No, this is a fucking gauntlet, bro.
Keep going.
Who won there?
Oh no, Thursday. Is that it?
Thursday? No, keep going. Thursday or Into It Over It?
Thursday
or Algernon?
Oh man, Thursday's so important to me. Thursday, like it's like
Thursday or the Wonder Years?
Oh, Thursday
or the Menzingers?
It's, I guess, sorry to the bands in my book. Thursday keeps beating them. Thursday
versus Title Fight.
Title Fight.
Empire.
Title Fight.
Tiger's Jaw.
Title Fight.
Title Fight, The Hotelier.
I think you probably have your winner. Title Fight.
Title Fight, Mobo.
Title Fight.
Gami.
Title fight.
Title
she's
fight,
so
Hot
defeated.
Mulligan.
Still title fight.
And last but not least, title fight Saturdays at your place.
Yeah, I gotta go title fight. It's
All right.
yeah.
Title fight's the winner.
That's fucking brutal, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's the first time we've ever done that. I was cooking that up earlier where I was like, oh, the Mount Rushmore is what I was like, we have so many good bands here. I was like, let's do a trip through emo here where it's just like a fuck you gauntlet. Like someone's got to get cut out.
That was my first time ever doing that. I've seen it a bunch.
Yeah, I've seen it, right? I was like, let's fucking rip that off.
It's so much more painful. Like now I'd watch it. They're fun to watch. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's more painful than I realized. And it's like,
right, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And you don't get to, you're like, well, like it depends, you know, like.
Right, yeah. Well, let's think about it. Like, are we talking about like era? Like, the peak of this band is better, but yeah, I'm not listening to, Jimmy Eat World in the last 15 years as much, but like, I mean, come on, clarity,
Yeah.
Recency bias plays in, like,
and it's like, like I'll watch them and I'll see somebody pick like some new band over like The Cure, and I'm like, no, it's not possible. You can't pick some, like, and now I'm like, oh, yeah, like, now I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I made some, sacrilegious choices there. I'm sure.
You did a good job. I appreciate
you one day.
It.
Yeah.
I have one more question before I pass over to Amanda here. As someone that writes online and does a lot of this, has had a great career. I imagine same thing with a musician. I think of like bands where like when they go play, when they play late night or something like that, it's seen as this legitimate thing to their family and friends and people they know from back home. Was there something like different? Like now all of a sudden you're an author that wrote a book. Did that get you any sort of different respect with your like family or friends or people around you as opposed to like the guy that's fucking the webmaster kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, like my mom is more impressed that you can buy my book at Barnes and Noble than
that kind of stuff.
Like I have an article on the internet,
so you can Google my boy,
right?
Yeah. Hey, those brick and mortar stores are coming back. They're important again to everyone.
Are they?
So yeah, to book lovers, Rob. Yes.
Yeah, no.
This is the first. Let me just say also, Andrew, this is the first book I've read. I'm almost finished it. I made it to like 165 today. This is the most book I've read probably since Laura Jane Grace's book. So that's probably 10 years ago.
Probably.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm flattered.
So
Thank you for reading.
I noticed also the front page of the book in the version we have is free for acknowledgments right there. Are you just waiting for media people to send over quotes? Because we will gladly send over a quote blazing you.
I mean, it's yes. they're in the works. I would yeah, if you'd like to do that, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, for the emo kids.
I saw it. I was like, we can, if we say something nice here, we might be able to get in this book.
We might, yeah.
Because it is, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, so far of the books, I mean, this is a very important book for this world. I was like, fuck, like, Amanda, you're gonna have to handle that right there, where we put together two sentences.
I'll write you something
intelligent. Yeah,
I will write you something nice.
Yes,
Rob.
thank you. I appreciate you.
That makes you look. That makes us all look good.
That makes us look intelligent. Yeah, yes, and let them know that this book is the shit to it. Because same thing, where it's like I felt like writing this book. Like I've written articles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not as as good as your articles, but it's like same thing where it's like those are doable things. That's work kind of thing. But like this book is this monumental undertaking to where it's like you put in all this time, and it's the same as like a band releasing an album, if not bigger in the sense of like you did all this, there's this gestation period, and then it's like, here's my thing.
I mean, I've written an album, not that anyone would know, but writing a book is way harder.
Yeah, so right, it's like five. It's like it's. There's no comparison. I can't. I've written an album. I can't imagine writing a fucking book. I cannot imagine the level of research and just like editing and keeping things like together.
It's more work and it's harder than like if a book is X times as long as an article, it's not like apples to apples as far as how much work it wants.
It's 100 times words longer. It's 100 times more work. Like, no, it's
right. It's like if it's 100 times longer, then it's 400 times more work. Is kind of what I learned. It's nuts. Like the longest thing I'd ever written before this is Brooklyn Vegan did a box set with Alexis on Fire, and I wrote this accompanying
greatest bands.
Yeah, they're incredible. I wrote this in accompanying 80-page magazine on their whole career,
Oh,
from
wow.
formation up through Otherness, the reunion record
Yes.
they did in 2022. And I was like, oh, that's 80 pages. The book's going to be like 4 times as long as that. This is doable. No,
It's
not like
just
it
4 of
was.
those Alexis on
It
Fire
was right.
articles.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. But no, it was not 4 of
Yeah.
those. It was like 50 of those.
You're like, oh shit, the history I just got on Alexis on Fire. I need to get that history on 20 other bands, but I sum it down to
20
2
other
pages
bands,
each band, basically.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
it was-
like,
and try to connect the dots, like how do all these band stories work together to tell my thesis and my
exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
you become
story.
Charlie and fucking It's Always Sunny, like connecting dots here, where it's like I have the whole into it
become the
over
meme.
like title fight, and then there's Alex Estrada, all these bands over here. I have to connect this shit. Blah, like fuck, like you did a great job, Andrew. It was an honor to have you on this show. Are you familiar with Scott's Records?
No.
Oh, you gotta know Scott. Scott is our friend. He's a vinyl guy. He's a real emo snob. I was gonna say in my head, you and Scott are kind of like definitive voices in emo. So like we, on behalf of all the bands that have been on our show and shit, we appreciate you for being a voice in media, in some sort of legacy media, whatever that is. Like getting this fucking shit out there. You know, like thank you for doing what you do. And this book is wicked. Like
It is.
you got me 160 pages deep. I'm gonna finish it tonight.
Well,
and I'm not very literate, so that's quite the compliment. So I'm what you call about 11th grade education level, probably in the brain. So like, I appreciate your book, Andrew.
Well, I appreciate you both for having me. It's really nice to be here, and and total honor. And you guys have been so nice to me. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to have you on. I'm excited to have your book as part of my collection of emo history books behind me that you can't see right now. But I'm
swapping out this motherfucker Dan Ozzie right here for you. Not
like,
Dan,
I'm getting rid of
you're a nice guy. That's not true.
Yeah. But no,
before we let you go, can we get a Nixon 4?
Nixon 4.
Hey man, it's your boy Petty Hendrix, man. You tuned in to Emo Kid Anonymous. Check it out, you did.